Today I am going to can the rest of the potatoes I'm going to can, and I'm using a recipe from the all-new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving. If you haven't looked at that book, it has some great ideas, and I'm using 4-jar lids. I am not sponsored by them or affiliate or anything, but I have watched several other YouTube channels where they're using these lids, so I ordered them. One was Sutton's Days, Lisa, and she highly recommended them, and I respect her opinion a lot, and I have bought a few boxes of them, so I wanted to let any of my friends who are looking for lids to look at 4-jars. You can order them online. They're based in Florida, and it's family-owned company and really a great product. I've been very happy with them. But anyway, the recipe I'm going to use is herbed potatoes. It's in this book, and they have several recipes that are quick 1-jar recipes. And there's some vegetables like green beans and mushrooms and balsamic beans, and I've done the Mediterranean potatoes. I have not done the chipotle, and I'm doing the herb potatoes today. And the difference between these and the last potato video I did is these are raw packed. And you can do it with a real small, just 3-pound bag of potatoes will get you 4 pints. So it's a good way to try and experiment and practice doing potatoes in a small batch rather than doing 50 pounds of potatoes or 20 pounds of potatoes. So with these, what you do is you peel the potatoes. You have to always peel them and rinse them, and then you cut them into halves or quarters, and then we're going to put them in warm jars. And their seasoning, now their directions, you mix the potatoes and the seasonings and then put them in the jars. Since I'm doing more than what they did, I'm not sure on the measurements, so I just divided, their yield is 4 pints, so I'm just dividing everything by 4. So in each jar, I'm going to put a half a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of rosemary, and a 1/4 teaspoon of thyme. And then you top it off with chicken or vegetable broth. And then we are going to process them in the pressure canner for 35 minutes because we're doing pints. So that is what we're doing today, herbed potatoes. My potatoes are all cut up and ready to go in the jars. I have some that are cut up here and some left whole. At the end, I'm going to do a few jars of potatoes cut like French fries and put in wide mouth jars and topped with water instead of the broth. And these are supposed to be really good in the air fryer. So I thought I would try a few jars as an experiment. And we do like using our air fryer, and you're supposed to just be able to drain them and dry them off with paper towel and air fry them. I'm ready to pack the jars now. I have warm jars out of the dishwasher. I have warm broth, and I have the water in my canner simmering. My pressure canner calls for 3 quarts. It goes up about 3 inches on my canner. There's a line there. So I have that filled with the water and on just low so that it's going to be warm water, not cold water. I'm putting the jars in. So let's get going. I have my spices out here, and I have a 1/4 teaspoon measuring. So it's a half a teaspoon of salt. So 2 spoons of the salt in each jar. And if you are trying to reduce your salt intake, the salt is not needed to make these potatoes safe. So then it's a 1/4 teaspoon of the other spices. Here's the rosemary. I've canned these before, and we really like them. They warm up really nice. I've also added them to around a roast. And pepper. They're not overly herby, you know, you just don't taste just spices. It just gives it a really nice flavor. So now we're gonna put in the potatoes. And it's kind of like Tetris. You gotta jiggle them around to get them to fit. Let me double check the headspace. Okay, it is 1 inch. I just wanted to double check that. 1 inch will be the bottom line here, like right at the shoulder. So we want the potatoes and the broth to come up to there before we put the lid. I have a big hole here where they didn't fit in, so there. Okay. Going to put the broth in. Now it says it might only take a couple of tablespoons of broth. I must not pack them as tight as some people. I must not have good Tetris skills. So let me move on to the next one, fill it up. Then I will debubble them all. I probably will not have to can very many potatoes in the fall by getting this big batch now. So it's one less thing I gotta do in the fall when things are pretty crazy. So I can wait till next winter if I need to restock the pantry. You know how it is when you're at your garden's coming in and it's the season for tomatoes and everything. You're just busy doing those if you like to can and like to have all the different products on your shelf. I'm doing the last of the potatoes. I have some jars here with the last of the cubes, and then I was slicing up some French fry style and putting in the wide mouth. These I can drain out and dry off with some paper towel or cloth and then air fry them or oven bake them. So that is what I am in the process of doing now, is cutting up these last potatoes so that they will fit into the jar. And let me show you how I do it. I put the jar on its side. It's a little easier to get them in there. The first jar I did, the potatoes were a little bit longer, and that worked out really nice. So just keep stuffing them in there. Into these, instead of broth, I am going to add just some hot water. I'm not going to salt them. I'll salt them when I go to cook them. I don't want them to be too salty. So water. I have fresh water in my canner heating up since I got 17 pints of the herb potatoes. Kind of rose up. You don't want them above that 1 inch. So I'll take that top one out and we are good now. They are all filled. I am just wiping off the rim. I debubbled all of them. Just trying to get, I've noticed that the French fries pop up. So I kind of got to readjust after you put the water in and debubble. Whoops. So finger tight. Tight. These 4-jar lids are really heavy duty. They're very thick. They do have a website that you can order them from. My jars are all filled and I had to use a double stack inside my canner this time. So there is a shelf in there in between that I ordered so I can stack 2. And my last jars I grabbed are wide mouth ones, so I don't have quite as many on the top layer. But the wide jars were easier to fill. So I am going to put the lid on this. I line up the arrows, twist it. I've already done my safety check, making sure this works, that the vent pipe is clear, that I can see through it and blow air through it, and that the rubber gasket looks good and the safety valve looks good. So I'm ready to put this on and let it heat up until steam comes out of the vent pipe. Very heavy steam, like a freight train. Usually on my canner, this pops up around that same time, but that isn't always the case. And then I put the timer on for 10 minutes. And I'll come back when it's that point. Okay, it came to steam. I let it vent for 10 minutes. I put the weight on, and now I'm just waiting for it to start wiggling. As you can see, the lock is up. So now it's just a waiting game, and then to adjust the heat to keep it at just a nice rhythm and not going crazy. And then I set the timer for 35 minutes once the weight starts to do the hula dance. Here are all the jars of potatoes the next morning. I was pretty tired by the time I got them all out. There are 23 jars total. I gave the wrong count yesterday. It's 23 pints. They did all seal. Tonight I'll take the rings off, wash them, and then let them dry and label them. Then they go downstairs in the pantry shelves. And I have 3 jars that I did like French fries as a sample. It's my first time doing that. When I go to use them, I'll drain them, pat them dry, and put them in the air fryer. I do that with these potatoes too, and it turns out really good. So 23 more jars of potatoes, and the pantry's pretty full of potatoes now. Thank you very much. If you like this video, please push the like button, subscribe to see more videos. I have some other ones coming up, and thank you very much for being here with me and helping me get through the day, the weekend when my mom was going through surgery and everything. It was a great distraction, and thank you.